We're going live. Cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I got to give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
And best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves up.
Did we not even get that whole intro? I think I have my whole self muted that whole time.
Yeah,
but let's do it again, man.
Whole thing was muted up.
Let's do it. I'll edit it out later. What up? What up? What up, world? We are back for part 2 of Start Sit here on Get Right Fantasy Network. I'm here with my boy Phil from the Extra Point, and we are here to take you guys through the remaining games here on the Sunday slate. And I think we have the Monday Night Football game in our slate here as well too, so we'll get to that. Of course, we'll get to your live start sit questions as well, so make sure you guys drop those in the chat, get them going as well. We do have the super chats going on as well too. That'll get us to you guys right away. So yeah, that's all we're doing tonight, man. We're taking the rest of those games. We'll get those live Q&A towards the end, so make sure you stick around. We will have those timestamps in the description as well. So Phil, why don't you tell the folks just real quick, because I'm sure they went over it in the other show, but what this slate is here for the week for us.
Yeah, let's do it. Mondays, 9 p.m. You're going to have Rasta and Frank host an Overreaction Monday show, week 1 recap, talking about waiver ads for week 2. Tuesdays, make sure you check out our boy Tycoon. He hosts the Fantasy Boardroom, 7 p.m. Wednesday, Rasta and Frank back at 9 p.m. Roster management, trade talk show, talking about buy, sell, hold targets. And then, on Thursdays, it's your boy. Come hang out at 4 p.m. I will host the Extra Point, leading you right up to Thursday Night Football. We'll get into some prop bets. We'll get into some DFS lineups. Make sure that if you are playing on Underdog, if you're playing on some of the other platforms, making sure that you guys have the best opportunity to make some money.
For sure. And just like we're doing here tonight, we're going to have part 1 and part 2 of our Start Sit. Just to help us out, so it's not us going for 3 or 4 hours total. So far, it seemed to be working out pretty cool. So we'll see how we get through this. We'll be back here Sunday morning, or at least Classic Mike will, at 8 a.m. Pacific, and what is that, 11 p.m. or I'm sorry, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, to do our active and inactive list. There will be some guys here that we go through that we may not have all the information if they're starting or sitting, like AJ Brown, who popped up on the injury report today with the hammy, which was terrible. I don't know if you even saw that, Phil. You were on the plane.
I did.
So we'll get into that. And then, of course, we'll go over some DFS, casual DFS lineups. And, of course, taking your questions there. So, again, make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button for us as we try to climb and hit that 1.3 thousand subscribers. We really do appreciate it for you guys. And like I mentioned earlier, just make sure you guys check out those timestamps in the description so that you can jump from game to game. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to my boy over here. His links right there. And of course, all the links are down in the description for the Extra Point, for the Tavern, for the Fantasy Boardroom. All can be found here on Get Right Fantasy Network. But make sure you guys go throw them a sub as well too. And why don't you, are you just ready to get our sleeves rolled up, man, and get into these games?
I had short sleeves on tonight, baby. Let's go.
Oh, just cut off. We're going straight cut off like Tank. Like by the end of this show, like Phil's not even gonna have his shirt on. It's gonna be crazy. All right, man. Let's do this thing, man. Let's just get right into it. Game 1 on our slate here is going to be Raiders at the Ravens. We have Baltimore coming in at 8.5 point favorites with the 41.5 point over under. So a couple guys that, I want to discuss here in this game. Let's start with Devontae Adams, man. What are we doing with Devontae here this week?
You're playing him. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you just have to understand the ceiling could be a little lower with Gardner Minshew, but he's the guy. If there is a chance for them to score through the air, he should be the target monster. I think at the end of it all, you just have to take what you get from him, but I don't see a reason why he's not in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys, man. My initial, thought process with him, I do have him a little down here as my wide receiver 29 right now. Maybe I'll scoot him up here a little more. I mean, that's still definitely, flex worthy. Most likely, though, like you said, you're going to have to start him because of where you drafted him, unless you have some better options. So if you do have any of those questions, drop them in the chat for us. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I gotta, I guess you got to roll with them, but at the end of the day, if I have some other options, I kind of want to see still a little more from this offense. So sticking on the Raiders side of the ball, what do you think about Brock Bowers dealing with that foot injury? Looks like he'll probably be active here this week. Had some good usage last week. Is he kind of a must start, or trying to find a way to get him in your lineup here?
I don't think I'm trying to find a way to get him in my lineup. I mean, I know that he had a good usage last week, which is great to see from a rookie tight end. But if you've got Devontae Adams, who's their target leader and their number one guy, all the way down at wide receiver 29, you're basically saying that the volume is going to be lower across the board with passing. We saw Zamir White on just about every. I just got off an airplane, so I was sitting in an airport bar a couple hours ago. NFL Network was on. Just about every analyst has Zamir White as a must sit this week. So maybe that raises the volume a little bit on the passing side, but it's Baltimore's defense. They're on the road. You know how I feel about that kind of stuff. Vibes aren't good there.
Yeah, I mean, I have him as my tight end, just 9. I mean, maybe I'll probably put Isaiah Likely ahead of him, who I have as my tight end 10 right now. It's so thin at tight end. Like, I think you could just kind of have to, if there's going to be volume, like he's going to get it. I thought this offense was going to be just hyper focused on Adams, but the fact that Bowers got, some a good amount of looks here is why I also am kind of a little down on Adams. I mean, I literally thought he was going to get like 15 targets, coming out of week 1.
Yeah.
So that's why I have Brock. The other guy I have here that I want to talk about is Justice Hill. What do you think about Justice Hill? Looks like he is the third down role. He is going to be worked in, was, playing on the first series last week. Where do you have him as a starter or sit this week?
I think you can flex him. I said this last week, right? Like I liked the usage that I saw. He looks very relevant. If you took the touchdown away from Derrick Henry last week, it wasn't a good week. And we said this all preseason leading up to week 1. Derrick Henry is going to be a touchdown volume play. If he doesn't get the touchdown, you're going to be disappointed. And I think what the Ravens showed last week is they're probably going to be using Hill a lot more. I expect this to be a very positive game script for the Ravens. So I think you'll see even more Justice Hill because they probably want to rest Henry. I don't see the Raiders being able to keep up in this game. So, I think it's a flex play.
Yeah, I mean, I have him down here as I have him kind of in that RB. I have him at RB 32. Kind of in that like flex range. The only thing I'm kind of worried about in this one is, like you mentioned, if the, if it does kind of, not really be a shootout, being a passing back, if they can kind of just run it out with Henry and give him 22 touches or something like that. That's kind of the thing I'm a little worried about. Whereas, of course, we saw a lot of usage when they were going up against the Chiefs, of course, because they were passing a lot. So I'm kind of, mixed feelings about him, which is why I want to discuss it and kind of see where you were at with him. But yeah, so, if you really need to flex him, and again, this is more in half and full PPR leagues. If it was, non-PPR, he'd be easily in the 40s for me as well.
Just to put this out there, people know this, but Kenneth KW3 is doubtful this week. And if you don't have Charbonnet, he's obviously not on your waiver wire. CMC's not playing. He's already been ruled out if you didn't get Jordan Mason off the waiver. So, I mean, like, if you have those guys and you don't have their backup handcuffs, I don't dislike Justice Hill if that's a route that you could go in your rosters.
There you go. So yeah, the last guy I kind of have here, because I think the other guys here are pretty much either starts or sit. But another guy I want to talk about is Isaiah Likely, coming off the big game last week, obviously tied in 1 overall so far. So where do you have Likely? I know we're not sitting Andrews, but do you think there's an opportunity for both of them to eat here?
I do. I don't think you mentioned it already, right? It's probably not a shootout. You're not going against the Chiefs like you were in week 1. So the volume, what was it, 10 catches for 109 and a touch, right? If my memory's
111
right.
or something like that. Yeah.
So, yeah. But I mean, just an incredible stat line. We talked about it all summer. And then obviously in week 1, who is the Ravens wide receiver 2?
Isaiah Likely.
Isaiah Likely, right? And so I do think you can see more 12 personnel from them. So,
Right.
Zay Flowers. I just put, that's how tired I'm getting.
There you go. I like it.
Zowers. It's a good nickname for him.
I like it.
Zay Flowers, obviously their guy, and then Andrews. Just a rough week. Obviously coming off some injuries, some stuff in the preseason. I think they're going to play more 12 personnel, and I think you can put Likely in there. I obviously wouldn't play him and Andrews together. But
right.
I think if you're thin, if you completely punted the tight end position, or you just happen to have him, pick him up off the waiver wire preseason, expect a lower ceiling. But I think he could still end up getting 4 or 5 targets, and if that turns into 50 yards and one of those is the touchdown, it's another great week for you.
He's going to be top 5 if you score a touchdown for sure. Yeah, but just with those 4 catches might do it enough.
Yep.
For sure. So those kind of guys I had to discuss. I have must-starts, of course, as Lamar, Derrick Henry, Flowers coming off 10 targets, and then Mark Andrews, like we talked about. I have Minshew's, Zamir White, Madison, Myers, Tucker, basically everybody else. Mayer, Bateman, Algor, all as sits. Anyone there that you disagree with, or you ready to move on?
Let's move on.
All right, let's do it. Make sure you guys drop those chats or any questions you have in the chat. If you shoot us a super chat, we will get to it right away. Otherwise, we will get to those questions when we get to the live Q&A segment. We're going to do 4 games, and then we'll have a little mini Q&A section just for those folks that are here watching. And then we'll do the other 4 games and then finish off with all the rest of the questions at the end. So let's get into this next game here. Oh, man, I forgot to use my banners. I worked on them and everything. Well, we're not going to have the banner for the first one, but here we go. Saints.
I forgot to remind you, so that's my fault.
It's all good, man. We're still getting the flow of it, man. It's just week 2, right? It's week 2. So we have Saints at Cowboys. We have Dallas coming in favored by 6 with a 46.5 point over-under. The first guy I want to talk about here in this game is Derek Carr, coming off a big game, of course, last week. Granted, it was against Carolina. But do you have Derek Carr as a start or a sit this week?
Sit him. It's the Cowboys defense. They still look really sharp. I don't know if I've never been a big Derek Carr believer, but I also know the Panthers are just that bad. So no, I'm sitting him. And I'll be honest, man. Like I think you can start Rashid Shaheed. I like his usage. I think he's still going to be involved. But that's really the only, other than the obvious, right? Like you're starting Olave, you're starting Kamara. I really don't want much else on the Saints side of the ball. I think the Cowboys roll in this one. At home opener. I think they roll.
All right. Just real quickly, Shaheed, then you have him as a sit, or you think he can find a way to get behind this, especially if they have, if they're, rolling coverage maybe over to Olave. Obviously, Diggs probably is going to be on Olave. Is there a chance for Shaheed to score here in this one?
I think Shaheed's a flex play this week because of that, right? Same. Diggs on Olave. And then I also think, like I just said, I think the Cowboys roll, so they're going to be chasing the game. And you could say, oh, but you just said to sit Carr. Derek Carr doesn't always throw it to the right team. But if he throws it to Shaheed, then you're okay, right? So like
it's a nice chunk play, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, we always talk about quarterbacks supporting wide receivers. I think this is one of those cases where Shaheed just needs one big heave from Carr, and that makes your day.
Right.
He needs a 60, 70-yard touchdown, and there's your 13 fantasy points, and you're set. So yeah,
yep.
I would flex him in this game, especially if they're chasing it.
For sure. I have him in that flex range as well. What about Taysom Hill? I have him as my tight end 12 in this one. Just again with his usage, getting I think 5 carries, and I think 4 of them came still while the game was fairly close against Carolina. Always obviously an opportunity for him to score. There is no other running back behind Kamara really at this point, besides Jamal Williams, who got some run real late, but I don't really see him as a factor there. Are you starting or sitting Taysom Hill given the landscape of tight end?
I'm sitting him, and I think I understand the landscape of tight end, but look, most people either went and got a punt option like a Pat Fryermuth, a Dalton Schultz late, who I would still start over him, or they went tight end, premium, and they went and grabbed a Kelsey or an Andrews, and obviously you're starting, those guys. McBride's already played this week. Excuse me, not McBride. Kincaid's already played this week. McBride, right. Obviously another high-end tight end. So, no, I'm out on Hill.
All right. So what about the other tight end in this game, Juwan Johnson, or on that team? Juwan Johnson, he saw some good usage last week. Found the end zone. We've seen him, be productive, kind of a safety blanket with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
So Juwan Johnson, you get him in your lineup?
It's just so touchdown dependent. I think the advantage of this is you probably think that the Cowboys are rolling, so the Saints are going to be chasing it. But what if that passing touchdown goes to Kamara? What if we're wrong and it goes to Taysom Hill? You know what I mean? So it's just so thin. There's just not enough volume for me to feel okay. And it's just 100%, not 100%. It's 99% touchdown dependent. And I don't want to be sitting there, with a minute 12 in the fourth going, okay, this is the last chance, Juwan, or I'm getting 2 points.
Right.
Here. I don't want to deal with that.
Makes sense. I have him kind of just outside of sit too. I actually have him and Hill back to back at 12 and 13. So, pick your poison. Again, it's tight end position. So you got to throw somebody in there at this point. Right. All right. So what about these Dallas running backs, Dowdle and Elliott? Where are we going here? Let's start with Dowdle.
I mean, it's still a committee. Obviously, Dalvin Cook's on the practice squad, so he's not in the mix, even though he's a name. I think people were a little bit worried he would be a kind of the third, fourth option in this offense. I can see a world where Dowdle could be a flex play simply because if the Cowboys are running away with it, they run the ball and run the clock out. But then you could also say Zeke could be in that position. So again, in these committee situations, unless it's a clear defined role of this guy's the first and second down guy, this guy's the third down guy. We just talked about Justice Hill being the pass catcher in the previous game. I just don't want it. I don't want to do with it. I don't want anything to do with it.
I think while it's still a split and while one of these, might take an injury or, Zeke to just completely fall off a cliff, obviously with him being back here in Dallas, there's some of that, homegrown, feeling. So I doubt they're just going to kind of throw him to the curb, so to speak, especially after bringing him back after going away. We saw Dowdle only get about 44% of the snaps. Elliott was at 51% snap share. Neither one had over 10 touches, or 10 carries, 8 for Dowdle, 10 for Zeke, 1 catch, in the passing game. Zeke was able to get the touchdown. Again, just 40 yards to the touchdown, saved the day there. I have both these guys as a sit this week as well.
Yeah.
What about Brandon Cooks, actually, though? Brandon Cooks. I have him as a sneaky start this week. With Lattimore, kind of banged up in the secondary for the Saints. I still think Cooks might be able to find his way into the end zone. I mean, I think he scored in 7 of their 8 home games last year. Just very comfortable there. Dak trusts him. I have him as sit. As a start? What about you?
I have him as a flex. Obviously, CD's going to get the volume. He's the alpha. But again, what if he doesn't get the touchdown and the touchdown goes to Cooks? So to me, I think that's an interesting kind of where do you go if you're Dak? We say that it's a running back by committee. He can't run. He's not going to. So I think when you look at this game, the over-under obviously has been it's actually been bet up a point, if that's right, on our sheet. So 46.5, it's good. I haven't looked at the game implied totals. I just got off an airplane 2 hours ago. I think
that should be correct. I did these just a couple hours ago, but you never know.
So the Cowboys are probably 23.5, 24 points of that implied team total, as their implied team total of that over-under. I think you can flex Cooks. Obviously, you're starting CD, but outside of the two, with Ferg out this week, if there is a passing option, I think it does go to Cooks with Ferguson being doubtful with the knee injury or the knee sprain. I think it is.
Yep. And I have him, in that flex range as well, in the 30s. As far as my rankings, I think he's around 32, 33, somewhere there. I'm actually starting him ahead of guys like Neighbors, Keenan Allen, and even Tank Dell going up against that tough Chicago defense. Brandon Cooks. Those are the guys that I had down here to discuss. I have my must starts as Dak, Lamb, Kamara, Olave in this game. I have the sits as Jamal Williams, Cedric Wilson, Tolbert, and then Ferguson, of course, is doubtful here with his knee. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, Schoonmaker, if Ferguson is out, do we see anything there, or are you just passing on the Cowboys tight end at this point?
I'm passing on that. Yeah,
there it is.
I'm played Cooks.
There it is. All right, so we will move on here. We'll get to the next game here, which is going to be Browns at Jaguars. All right, let me redo that here. So, boom, Browns at Jaguars. We have the Jags coming in favored by 3 with a 41.5 point over-under. We have Njoku being ruled out of this game, dealing with that high ankle sprain. So I want to start here at the quarterback position with Trevor Lawrence. Do you have Trevor Lawrence as a starter or sit this week?
I actually have him. I have him as a start, and if my airplane Wi-Fi was good, I think I saw something about Myles Garrett popping up on the injury report. And being very actually seriously questionable for this game. So that makes a huge difference. He's obviously a game wrecker. I expect the Jaguars at home to win. I think the Browns are disgusting after what I saw last week. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn to Jameis Winston pretty soon. So to me, it's a start. I think Lawrence could have a nice week, especially if Myles Garrett misses.
Well, a little update on that. Looks like he has no injury designation for week 2. Okay. So he was dealing with that foot, was limited still here on Friday, but everyone is expecting him to play. Zadarius Smith, though, is the one dealing with the back that may not play there.
I think you can still start Lawrence.
Same. I think I have him towards the lower end, kind of towards, QB 12-ish or so. But yeah, I mean, I have him as a potential start here. It is a tough defense. I think I have him right on that borderline. Yeah, actually, I have him a little out. So I have Trevor Lawrence at my QB 16. So I guess in a 1 QB league, I actually have him as a sit.
Okay.
Got guys like Baker. I had Tua, ahead of him, Burrow, Prescott, Stroud, Stafford. Geez. I think is going to be good, but I have him ahead of guys like Caleb, Geno, and Herbert.
Yeah, we'll get to that game. That game's going to be fun. Yeah,
for sure. All right, so let's move on here. Let's go with Tank Bigsby, back up here to ETN, who actually outproduced him on the ground. What are we doing with Bigsby? Is he a start, a sit, a flex, or are we just kind of holding on to him at this point?
Personally, I want to see it one more week to see if last week was a fluke or not. I understand if you want to give him a flex, one of your flex spots. I get it. I think it's probably a closer game than people are expecting. I just want to see it. I don't know, man. I'll be honest. Like, I don't know. Last week to me was like, I would bench him personally. Like like I said a couple minutes ago, like I want to see it one more time.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if it was an outlier week or whether this is a trend and we should, if this is something we really do need to pay attention to. So I think if you're hurting, throw him in your flex spot. If you can afford to bench him, I would leave him out.
Yeah, I have him as my RB 39, so I have him as a sit. He's still only played 32% of the snaps. This is a tough defense here, again, especially with Garrett being active here. And, I think it's ET. I mean, I'm just a big ETN fan anyway, so maybe there is a little, fog in those glasses, so to speak, that I just don't want to see Bigsby be a thing. Yeah. So yeah, right now I have him as a sit. I want to see more. So let's talk about these Jacksonville wide receivers. We have Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr. Where do you kind of have these guys? Do you have them as starts this week going up against this kind of stingy Browns secondary?
Fire up BTJ. That one's an easy start for me. I'm sitting Christian Kirk. I mean, 4 targets, 1 catch, 30 yards. And Miami's defense sucks. So last week was horrifying. He played 72% snaps. So I'm sitting him. I think BTJ, yes, he caught the touchdown, but even still, he out-targeted him. So give me BTJ as a start. Give me Evan Ingram, obviously, as a start. And I'm sitting Christian Kirk. I just put him. I just set a couple lineups extra right before the show. I just took him out of a flex spot.
Yeah, I still kind of have them on that borderline flex. I have these guys kind of back to back. I keep switching them. I have them as my wide receivers 36 and 37. Not sure which way to go with them. I probably will find a way to get them in my lineup. I mean, I haven't drafted both of them on any team. But if I do have one of them, they probably are going to be my flex. But like you said, I mean, he's still not playing a full-time role, 72% of the snaps. He was dealing with that. Wasn't he dealing with like an ankle injury or something like that kind of coming into the year? So I think that maybe could have a lot to do with it. But the connection with Trevor Lawrence is there. We've seen it. We've seen him produce at high numbers. I'm not giving up on him yet. I like you said, you like Lawrence starting. I mean, he has the ability to get him the ball. They could just be trying to, figure things out. So again, 36, 37, I basically kind of have him and BTJ as the same guy. Yeah. Just last ditch kind of flex spot there. What about Gabe Davis?
Nope. You know how I feel about Gabe Davis.
All right, simple enough. I have him as a sit as well. In this one, he's a best ball guy, which is our take on Gabe Davis.
I'll put it to you like this, Rasta. Unless one of the wide receivers gets injured, I'm pretty much going to be out on starting Gabe Davis unless there's like a clear path for the rest of the season. He's a best ball guy.
Yeah, I have him down way at wide receiver 55, man. I mean, I'm playing guys like DeMarcus Robinson, Alec Pearson, Mitchell, and Dortch and Hopkins ahead of him. So, okay. All right. So we'll get into that. All right. So let's flip over the other side of the ball here. Let's talk about some of these Browns guys. Amari Cooper didn't have the greatest game last week. Just barely missed a nice long touchdown there. What do you think about Amari Cooper?
Here's what I think. You have to start him because of where you drafted him. I don't want to start him because Deshaun Watson is atrocious. So it's less
just
about
waiting for Winston.
Yeah, I mean it is, and it's less about Amari Cooper and the matchup and the talent. It's more about it's like Malik Neighbors. The quarterback is going to absolutely sink him. And sure, if Winston makes Winston, see, I'm already saying Winston. See what you got me doing? If whatever his massage boy over there, if he can make 2 or 3 good throws to Cooper, Watson, thank you. Then yeah, fine, sure. But like, I mean, did you watch the game? Because I did. It was it was awful. So I think if you start Amari Cooper, don't watch the game and just hope and pray that you can get a nice box score later on. But I'm fading it. I don't like it. And I just, man, the Browns are, give me all the Jerome Ford I can get. And that's really the end of where I want to be with the Browns this week.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Cooper playing 95% of the snaps, 9 targets. You like seeing that. But yeah, just the 2 catches for 16 yards is brutal. So we need better quarterback play there. At least the designs are going towards them. We just need better quarterback play. So let's go Winston. Fire him up here soon. All right. So obviously, with that kind of take, if we're even that iffy on Cooper, Jerry Jeudy was the one who actually caught the touchdown last week. But is that a little bit of fool's gold? I have him as a sit myself personally.
I think that would have been whoever gets it, great. And if it wasn't their week, then poo-poo. So yeah, I'm out on Jeudy. It's fool's gold, like you said.
I actually have Gabe Davis ahead of Jerry Jeudy. I'll play Gabe Davis before I throw Jerry Jeudy in
the question.
There it is. All right. So with Njoku out, are we even considering Akins at all?
No, because of the quarterback play. Like I said, give me Jerome Ford. I think it's a good week for Jerome Ford. He does catch passes out of the backfield. I think he's a volume play.
This defense is a sieve for pass catching running backs too.
You took it right out of my mouth, right? This is
a
great week.
Sorry.
No, perfect. I mean, it needed to be said. I think this is a really strong week for Jerome Ford. I know people that were, I know you have a lot of him. I've got a couple shares of him, obviously, in redrafts. I was stoked for last week. It didn't quite go the way we were hoping for from a ceiling perspective. I think this is a really good week for him. I think it's a strong play this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I have Ford as my RB 17 this week. There's even a couple guys I'm still debating if I want to put them ahead of, like Rashad White and Kamara. But there's just other guys I think are just in better situations or just better talent, so to speak, that I have ahead of them, like Brian Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Jordan Mason. So I can't get him like too much higher, but I have him as a strong RB2, here this week, a very strong RB2 play. All right. So again, must starts are Ford, like we talked about. You're starting ETN, you're starting Evan Ingram. Yep. And I have my must sits as Watson. We're not starting Pierre Strong or Elijah Moore, or anyone else in this game. You good with that?
Good with that.
All right, man, let's move on. We're powering through it. And again, we see you guys' chats there. We will get to them here. Actually, after this game, we'll go through a couple. So if you want to kind of take a look out for some of the chats or some of the questions there, Phil, that we can get to when we go through our break here really quick. But other than that, let's get into this next game, which is our boys here, 49ers at Vikings. Our Niners are favored by 4.5 with a 46.5 point over under. Obviously, the big news here today, CMC being ruled out, possible IR candidate. So fire up, Jordan Mason, like we talked about. We have also Addison is out, who torched us last year with no Justin Jefferson. So kind of happy as far as a fan goes for that. Not so happy as far as all my shares of him in best ball and in my leagues go. But he's out dealing with that ankle, which I think is just going to be better for the long term. But let's start here on the Niners side of the ball, as we should. Brock Purdy, do you have him as a starter or sit this week?
I have him at quarterback 13. So he is just outside. I think you can play him. It's the Niners. You can always play the Niners. You just have to. I mean, Brock Purdy is obviously the quarterback, the only one that's guaranteed to touch the ball. With the Niners, now CMC's out, but with the Niners, when it's Georgia's week, it's a strong play. When it's Debo's week, that means Ayuk fails. So you just kind of have to take your lumps when you play those guys. But I have Stafford just ahead of Purdy.
I have him right ahead of him too.
So yeah, just because of the game environment. But if you don't have
Right.
Stafford and you have Purdy, and I'm saying, he's my quarterback 13, fine, no problem.
Yeah.
The game's in a dome, no CMC. So even though Jordan Mason ran riot last weekend, the pass catching should go to the wide receivers and to George.
Right.
So I think that benefits Purdy. And yeah, I think you can play him.
Yeah, it could be a sneaky good game for Kittle. Have him up as I think like my tight end for this week.
Yep.
I think he has a good chance. But yeah, I have Purdy as my QB 15. So I'd be interested to see who you kind of have ahead of him. But I do have Stafford right ahead of him. And then I have Burrow. So maybe Burrow you have maybe behind those two. But I do have Purdy ahead of Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Geno, and Herbert here this week. So let's move on to Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, still getting his legs under him after this whole holdout situation or hold-in situation. Do you feel comfortable getting him in your lineups this week after what we saw last week, which is a little bit of a disaster?
I mean, last week, as much as it was a disaster, I think it was expected. Kyle Shanahan came out pretty clearly in his presser and said, look, he's going to be on a quote-unquote pitch pound. He's going to have a reduced
60% of the snaps only, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I think we had it on this show. I think we had this game on the show last week, and we said to sit him, right? We knew it wasn't going to be a good run for him. I think you can start him this week. I think he's getting his legs under him. It's a game that, again, we talk about it all the time. When it's one of the guys that's the pass catching options week, it's their week. Debo could go into the backfield a little bit. We saw a little bit of that last week. I know Jordan Mason.
Yeah, he's the RB2 for sure.
And I think you saw some of it, right? Like Mason had a phenomenal game. You're obviously starting him. But Debo took a couple of snaps out of the I set. And I mean, like I think you can play Ayuk.
Okay. So let's talk about Jones, Aaron Jones. Do we have him as a starter or sit this week going up against this Niners defense?
That's a sit for me.
All right. Yeah, Warner was like on a mission last week, man. He was trying to hurt people.
yeah. It's the Niners defense looked sharp. It was I think it was kind of a, hey, you know what? Super Bowl hangover. F that. We're back. It's a new season. We're ready to rock and roll. I've just never been a big Aaron Jones truther. I think this is a game where, again, we expect the Niners to be winning. If that's the truth, and that's what then that's how it comes to fruition. Then Sam Darnold's throwing it to try to play a little bit of catch up. I'm not that front with Bosa and then Warner there. I'm sitting Jones. I just don't think I don't care if the game's at home in the dome.
Yeah, got him as I prefer to sit him maybe where you drafted him. He has to be your RB2 or a flex for you, so I don't hate you if you have to do it, but hopefully you grabbed a Mason or maybe a Jerome Ford late or someone like that you can put in ahead of him this week. Just kind of stay away. But with that said, with what you just said as far as that goes, Ty Chandler, does that make him maybe an interesting play for some dump offs and things like that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's thin, but I think, again, if you're thin at running back position and that's a player you have, like, I'll be honest, I've got a couple of leagues where I'm really thin at running back and I'm seriously looking his way. I'm going to probably make that decision pretty early in the morning on Sunday. But again, if they are chasing the game with the dump offs, he's more of the pass catching option. Excuse me. I know we're going to talk about Jalen Naylor in just 1 second, but like that's with Addison.
Go right into it.
Yeah, with Addison being out, I don't think Naylor's a strong enough play to really get into your lineups. I need to see it before I'm comfortable with him. I think the targets probably get pretty consolidated to Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones will get the carries, and then obviously I think Ty Chandler gets some of that pass catching work out of the backfield.
Yeah. Oh shit, here comes Nick Bosa. Here you go, Chandler. So there we go. So those are the guys kind of that I wanted to discuss. I have, Jordan Mason, Debo, Kittle, Jefferson as our must starts, no question about it. And my must sits are, Sam Darnold, Powell, and Munt. Any questions there, or are we good to move on this one?
No, we can roll.
Let's do it, man. So let's take a quick break here. We'll get to a quick little Q&A session. So if you guys do have questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. We're going to have two sections. We're going to do one here real quick. So we'll maybe do like 4 or 5 questions that came in first. And then we'll finish off the rest of the questions at the end of the show once we're done breaking down the games. If you do want your question read right away, you can always drop us a super chat, and we'll get to it right away. Or you could just throw us a super chat because we're helping you out here, or just because you want to. Either way, we won't mind. So go right ahead, Phil.
Yeah, John Nickel, non-PPR, so standard league. Not a ton of people playing in standard league, so if you are, this will be a great one for you. Obviously, point per 10 yards, extra 6 for a 40-plus touchdown.
Dang.
Start 2, Pacheco, Stevenson, Mason. Ross, I'll let you go first because this is a pretty easy one for me, but where do you lean here?
Pacheco, Mason. I mean, that's for me pretty easy there.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Patriots are just a team I just don't want I don't want to be in.
There you go. You got another one?
I do really quickly. It's kind of up here. Give me 1 second. It looks like maybe there's a possibility here to trade CMC to get Bijan and another piece. I'm not sure. There's maybe some back and forth chatter in the chat here of like what that additional piece would be. If Bijan is a part of a trade for CMC, if you can trade CMC away to get Bijan in plus a piece, I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
CMC's, I don't know if he's going to go on IR, but he's already not played the first 2 weeks. The Niners, similar to other teams, with Travis Kelce, we talk about the Chiefs a lot, like, oh, Travis Kelce had a terrible week. Travis Kelce's job is not to win you fantasy games anymore. His job is to win the Super Bowl for the Chiefs, and that's what they're going to use him for. Christian McCaffrey's job is to win the Super Bowl for the 49ers. So if I can get Bijan plus for CMC, I'm smashing accept.
There you go. Let's see. And I pretty much agree. And if it's specifically out of those wide receivers, even though I'm not really big on Pittman, I'd probably go Pittman. Just because, like you said, I don't want to double up and go London and Bijan. But yeah, I would do that for sure. Let's see. And then shout out to Victorious, man. Love that he's always out here with us saying 2 games in and Achan's overall RB1 season. Let's go. So he called it. He was preaching that all the way. Appreciate you letting me know there was no audio there as well, too. Same thing with Joe here as well. I forgot to change the banner to the
Achan to the moon, baby. Achan to the moon,
right?
After yesterday.
There it is. So we got another one here. We'll do just a couple more, and then we'll get back to our game breakdowns here. So let's see. Derek says flex Reed or Deontay and full PPR.
It's Reed for me. I mean, I know what we saw last week. It could be Christian Watson this week. Could be any of the Packers, but your Panthers, Bryce Young. Ugh.
Even with Willis, even though they haven't rolled out Love, I mean, I'm still going Reed in this situation. Just not feeling this Carolina offense whatsoever. At this point. Alex Martinez, what's up, man? How's it going? Says, which is a better roster spot, Rome or Jalen Wright in full PPR right now? So
I know Rome's trending. He's kind of got a weird situation this week, may not play this week. I did not like what I saw from Jalen Wright last night. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Ryan Tannehill could be the quarterback for this team as early as next week, right? It's just a weird situation with Tua right now. So yeah, I would still lean Rome here, especially in full PPR.
For sure. Shout out to Y Prime. He was on the earlier show, so he's pulling double duty with us here, man. We appreciate you. Appreciate that support, man. And yeah, Ray was saying he also has Mason. So that's great. If you're able to get rid of CMC, get Bijan, and keep Mason, hey, that's a move. I wouldn't be surprised if he asked you for Mason and CMC if that's the case. And I highly suggest if you do have Mason, or if you are targeting CMC, just make sure you get Mason too, just in case, as a little backup plan there. Go ahead.
No, this one's just interesting. Picked up Sharps off the waiver wire, dropped Justin Fields. Justin Fields seems to be trending towards being the guy again this week, but it's already listed as doubtful for KW3. Charbonnet obviously going to be the guy. I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. I just put Charbonnet into just about all my flex spots that I possibly can in every league that I have him. So we're all right there.
Yeah, for sure. Albert in the house. I had to bring Albert up. He was in the show earlier and here tonight. I don't think he's missed a show since we've started 4 years ago. So appreciate you, Albert, man. And I see him in other streams as well too. So he's a degenerate just like us, man. I appreciate it. All right, so I think that's good for now. We appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll remember kind of where we left off here. But yeah, keep dropping your chats. And when we get one, actually just like this, since our boy over here, Ray, what's up, Ray? Shooting us a $10 super chat here. We appreciate you, my guy. He says, y'all got super chats now? I knew you were going places. He says, pick two, Ayuk, Reed, and Worthy. So let's get to it, man.
It's Ayuk and Reed.
You're the anti-Worthy guy, man.
I'm not. But here's the thing. Look, we talked about this. There was an answer. I had the question: is Xavier Worthy that dude? Can he do it? And we did not get the answer last week.
Right.
Because what happened?
I agree with that.
What happened last week was the Worthy truthers are beating the drum. He's the dude. He's the dude. How can you say he's not? He had 3 catches on 4 targets and 1 run. And if you take those 2 touchdowns out, it was an atrocious week.
Yeah. But I mean, if he didn't score on those, maybe they worked him in and he got a couple more targets and a couple more catches. But when you score, from far out, it happens. So for me, it's a little tougher.
If I was 6'8", I might be in the NBA, but I'm 6'2", and I'm not in the NBA. So
ifs and buts, right? Ifs and buts, horseshoes and hand grenades.
That's right.
So I'm probably. I mean, for those of you guys who know me and Ray, I know you know me. Man, if you're not first, you're last. Like for me, I gotta find a way to get Worthy in my lineup until he shows me not to. Even though there is a lot of stuff that maybe said last game that he shouldn't be. But he's just one of those guys, like a Devon Achane, where you don't need many touches and you can score and you can put up fantasy points. So I don't think, having to have all the work or all the targets, I don't think that's his role in this offense. I think that Andy Reid scheming and designing plays for someone with his talent, he only needs to be on the field a couple times to make a splash play. Obviously, you're going to be hurting if it doesn't happen. So you just have to be willing to deal with that. So for me, I'm probably going to go Ayuk and Worthy. I would just rather attach my guy. I want the guys who are attached to better quarterbacks in this situation. That's what, breaks it down for me, even though we said we'd start Reed in the last question. For me, I'll take the guys that are attached to Purdy and Mahomes versus Willis. That's it for me in regards to that.
Because everyone's gonna be, oh, you're so anti-Worthy. I'm okay with that. That's fine.
For sure.
I'm not anti-Worthy. I just need to see if he's going to be a boom bust guy, or if you can actually depend on some consistent, target and some
weekly plays,
run out weekly play. Yes.
For sure. And we had to spend some time on this question, man. When you throw us a $10 super chat like that, we're not just going to give you a quick little answer and run off. We really appreciate the support, man, for the channel. Ray, you've been with us for a long time. So really appreciate it, man. Yeah, we got Wicked in the house. What's up, man? He's saying, super chat gang, let's go. Yeah, we got him unlocked, family, because of you guys, man. We did it because of you guys. So keep it coming. We appreciate the support. So with that said, and shout out to my boy Justin Herbert TD in here as well, too, man. I see you guys all rocking in the chat, man. McLevin Muhammad, we see your questions in there. We'll get to them when we get to the next break. So that live Q&A segment was brought to you guys by our boys over at underdogfantasy.com. So for those of you guys who don't know Underdog Fantasy, there is it's a best ball platform, first and foremost, no waivers, no trades, no lineup setting. But now that they are in season and we're not drafting preseason, I love doing their pick'ems. You just pick higher or lower on rushing yards, touchdowns, things like that. Similar to something like this, which is the special they have this week, CeeDee Lamb plus or minus a half a yard. When you do go sign up, make that first deposit using that promo code GetRight, you will get the free pick here as well. In addition to a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 now, man. Look at that. So make sure you guys use that promo code GetRight, man. Take advantage of that bonus cash. Come in here, get into a pick'ems, get into some of their weekly drafts as well too, have some fun, man. Let us know, and we'll get in there with you guys. So Underdog is where it's at. All right, so let's move on here. We have our next game that we're going to break down. We got 4 more games here. We will go with, let me find my banner, Rams at Cardinals. We have the Cardinals favored by 1 at home, so this is basically a toss-em, pick-em-up game here with a 47.5 point over-under. This game would have been way more interesting, even with Puka, of course, who is out, placed on IR, dealing with that knee injury. So let's talk about Stafford. Where do you have Stafford? We kind of mentioned him a little bit, but you have him as a starter.
Start them all, baby. No, I'm kidding. I love this game environment. It's in a dome. It's a divisional rival. My brain just went blank. Arizona, thank you, went on the road last week at Buffalo and put up a ton of points in a cross country matchup, which is always difficult to play. Got to remember they played the 10 a.m. game.
Right.
which is always hard for West Coast teams with that adjustment to play that early game and go the length of the country. So I think this is, I think we all do, but I think this is a shootout. I'm starting Stafford this week. I think the game goes back and forth. I like the play. I'm starting Robinson as one of my flex players. We talked about it earlier.
He's the next guy. Yeah, DeMarcus Robinson.
Yeah, I was setting some lineups. Cooper Kupp is going to get everything. We know that. But Cooper Kupp would have gotten everything anyway, right?
True.
Even if Puka was there, it would have been just, who gets more week over week. But the two of them were going to be the two main guys. So I think somebody needs to step up. I love DeMarcus Robinson this week. He was targeted 7 times last week, and he had decent involvement. Even he was on the field, even when Puka was available the first part of the game there. So 4 for 7 last week for 40, 4 for 7 for 42. It's probably a similar stat line this week. I would maybe add 10 to 15 yards on top of that because you expect him to get an extra target or two, which could maybe result in an extra catch. I think it's possible he finds the end zone. I think Colby Parkinson, we talk about tight end being really thin. I think Colby Parkinson's really interesting this week too because of obviously you're starting Kyron, but Stafford doesn't run. So if they aren't going to give the ball to Kyron or Corum on the goal line, it could be inside the 5-yard line. Could be a really
Higbee was a thing, man. That dude would rip touchdowns.
So this could be it's a little thin because I think he's probably touchdown dependent. I do expect the targets obviously to go to Cooper. I expect them to run, and then I think Robinson will have a nice week. But Colby Parkinson is a sneak. If you need a tight end, is a sneaky tight end this week.
Yeah, Ferguson went down, and Njoku.
Good game environment for sure.
Awesome. The only other guy you didn't mention in that was Ty Johnson. He was kind of a bigger waiver wire ad this week with Puka going down, him and Robinson. Do you think he has any shot at doing anything here this week, or you want to see it first?
I want to see it. I understand the reasons to add him. I think when you have an injury to a player like a Puka where you're trying to replace so much volume, Ty Johnson, sure, could he have a role? Yeah. But I expect those targets to go to Cooper. Go with your safety blanket. Go with the guy that Stafford's eating breakfast with and loves to death. And it's just so easy for me to see where Cooper Kupp just gets everything. And then like I said, I liked the involvement of Robinson last week. And I think McVay keeps that momentum going and involves him a little bit more. And then again, as I said, maybe Parkinson catches the touchdown. So I like those 3 guys on the Rams side. Obviously Stafford and Kyron and Cooper Kupp, you're starting those guys.
For sure. And just real quick, Ray says 8 likes. Let's get those likes up, man. We got almost 40 people watching right now. We should have almost 40 likes going on. So hit that like button for us. Make sure you guys are subscribed as well too. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Big player to talk about this week in a starter sit situation. Seen people all over the place. We already talked about it. Or maybe it was in the earlier show that I was watching. I don't know what's happened. But Marvin Harrison Jr. Are we starting or sitting him after that 1 for like 3 or whatever it was last?
Well, let me ask you this question. So this is a yes or no. Do you buy into Kyler Murray's comments about my job's not to whatever he said, my job's not to get him the ball, it's the play call or whatever. Do you buy into any of that?
I don't know, man. I don't know if he's just kind of playing lip service or what he was doing there. A little iffy. I mean, I'd rather have him not said that. It would have made me feel a little better having not known that. So I'm just going to pretend like maybe I didn't hear it. But I mean, again, just, 6'4", has the pedigree that he has. We've seen the talent. He is attached to a good quarterback. They just got to find themselves, man. With it, I think the play caller will do a better job of designing some stuff with him. I think the problem with Marvin Harrison Jr. was his ADOT, I think, was like at 13 yards or something like that last week, which, Kyler didn't really have that time. The ball was already out before he was hitting 13 yards. So I think they need to do a better job of calling the plays. And maybe that's what Kyler was talking about. Like, let's get this guy involved in some slants, use that big 6'4" frame to just box these guys out on some quick slants. Design up some touches for him as far as some screens and things like that. Just do a better job of getting your number 1 pick involved. And I think he could do much better. And it was 1 for 4 on 3 targets. That's where I was getting the 3 from. But yeah, so I think there's more to come. I think it's a big, buy low opportunity on Harrison if there are people panicking. And he is also a rookie too. So, Kyler has that chemistry with Dortch and with Wilson already from last year when he came back. So, they seem to be more like the safety blankets this week. And so we'll just kind of see what happens. So I'll flip it back to you. So what are your thoughts on Harrison?
I'm starting him. I think you just have to take last week and throw it out. You know what I mean? I mean, people have stuck with Kyle Pitts for 4 years. So it's like you
have to give Marvin Harrison Jr. at least a week, right?
So the kid that you're basically saying is already in Canton, you're going to quit after 1 week. I mean, my other question to you is going to be just really simply, and this is obviously rhetorical at this point. If he catches the wide open, run on the last play there and he scores that touchdown,
we're not having this
conversation. So let it go, throw it out the window. Marvin Harrison, fire him up. You're going to be fine. And look, if he has another stinker this week, guess what? You're still going to start him again next week. If it's 3 in a row, then we can have this discussion.
Now we can start talking. Yeah, there we go.
Right
there
now,
we go.
Get him in there.
For sure. I kind of have him, I've dropped him down a little bit, of course, from where I had him ranked week 1, but I still have him here as my wide receiver 17, actually right ahead of my wide receiver 18, Amari Cooper, who we talked about earlier. So,
yep.
Let's see who else we got. We mentioned I mentioned just a second ago, Dortch and Wilson. Are these guys starts for you, or where you have them?
No, not this week. I think you maybe could, if you're really thin, you could maybe consider flex Michael Wilson, because again, we do think this is a good game environment. But with James Conner, with Marvin Harrison, with Trey McBride, I don't know how much is going to be left over. So it's not really where I want to go this week. I'm starting the main guys and believing what I think will happen is that they'll get the targets and they'll get the touchdowns.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I think one of them is going to score a touchdown, most likely Dortch. It's kind of what we've seen. But, I think one of them will score. I just don't know which one. So that's why I kind of want to have him as a sit, at this point. And again, especially if they make that concentrated effort to get Harrison involved a little more, then of course, that's going to come at the expense of Dortch and Wilson. Because of course we know who we have as a must start. McBride, that was one thing that we felt good about is the targets to McBride.
Yeah.
I would just like to see a little more after the catch. But I still have McBride as a must start, along with James Conner, Kyler Murray, Kyron Williams, and Cooper Kupp. Do you disagree with any of those there? The only one I thought maybe was a question mark was Conner, but I feel like you have to have him in your lineup.
He's in there. I mean, we had scored the touchdown last week. He had a decent run out. I mean, he's in there.
All right, sounds good. Another thing to note on this too is, that Rams offensive line is a little banged up as well too. So something to kind of just keep your eye on there as well. But this defense, we're not too scared of. So, so we're firing them up. We have our sits as Corum, Rivers, Jordan Whittington, DeMarcado, and Benson. We're all sitting. So let's move on. Next game here on the slate is going to be Steelers at Broncos. We have is that right? The Broncos are favored? No, it can't be right. No, okay, yeah, I had that wrong. Pittsburgh's favored by 2.5, 36.5 point over under. So not expecting much in this game. So let's talk about Justin Fields here real quick. Looks like he's getting the start here this week again. Where do we have Justin Fields?
Sit. There's not enough point there. So Justin Fields, I mean, his fantasy value is again with his legs and his running ability. Is this a shootout? Probably not. Is Bo Nix going to push him? Probably not. Is Fields going to push Nix? Probably not. So I don't want any part of Fields this week. I don't want really any part of this game. I'm going to be very transparent. This game, the only player that I really actually do want to start in this game is Pat Freiermuth, because the tight end position is so thin. I just don't. Jalen Warren is getting healthier. Is he going to take away from Najee? I think so. I think Najee has a decreased workload this week. George Pickens, you know what he's capable of. He's streaky. He could give you 5 for 129 and 2. He could give you 5 for 27. So, Jaleel McLaughlin wasn't as involved as we maybe thought he would be. Him and Javonte were both pretty stinky last week. Cortland Sutton, I think if you really need to, I just put him into a flex. I had to put him into a flex this week. I can't remember who I've lost. Oh, Puka. I lost Puka. So I had to put Cortland Sutton into my flex, but only because he's the only real pass catcher on that offense.
Yeah.
But I don't feel good about it. If I could have found someone better on the waiver wire, I would have. But yeah, again, target monster there, 12 targets last week. So, if one of those becomes a touchdown, it's fine. But this game screams 17-13. You know what I mean? Like it's 17-14. Like it's one of those games. If you're at the bar and you got all the, games, you ask the bartender to put it on the side screen and put the Rams Cardinals on the main one so you can watch that.
For sure. The only thing I want to mention about Fields, just going back to that really quickly, this Broncos defense is susceptible on the ground. So I think there could be some opportunities there for him to run. The only must start I have in this game is Najee because of that as well too. You mentioned a lot of the other guys already. I think the only one we didn't talk about there was Warren, still working his way back from that injury. Do you have him as a starter sit this week?
Not yet. I mean, if you have to flex him, fine, but I think you need to see it because again, it's less about him and Najee together. We know they can coexist. We saw that last year, RB24, RB20. I think it's more just like how healthy is the hamstring and are they going to ease him in this week and lean on Najee, like you just said, because of the run game, or do they just get it back into more of that, 55-45 kind of split?
Okay. And Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson dealing with that ankle, questionable. Cordell Patterson, who actually got some run last week. Good old Arthur Smith. Gotta love it. Bo Nix, Devontae Williams. Yeah. Wendell's, Mims, Dolchich. I'm sitting all those guys this week. Any disagreements there?
Nope. Sit them all.
All right, let's do it. Appreciate you guys, man. The chat is popping off in there. We do see it. We will get to our next Q&A section here in a moment. If you do want your question answered right away, you can always drop us a super chat. We will get to it immediately. Otherwise, just drop it there, and we will go back during that Q&A section and get to as many of those as we can. So other than that, let's jump into this next game here. We got two more left. This next one is going to be Bengals at Chiefs. Should be a good one. We have the Chiefs coming in favored by 6 with a 48-point over-under. A little lower over-under than I would have thought. Obviously, with no Higgins, he's out or doubtful. I'm expecting him to be out, still dealing with that hamstring. We got the news today. Hollywood Brown's going to be out, going to have surgery. So he'll be out. Obviously for a minimum of 4 games, but based on that surgery, looks like it's more like going to be like a 12-week absence. So with that said, let's talk about Joe Burrow, obviously coming off a bad game. Do you have him as a starter or sit this week?
I have him as you have a guy that's injured and you have a game time decision. I have Joe Burrow as a game time decision on Sunday for me of what I want to do. And it's a question of what I believe is going to happen in the game. If the game goes the way I think it's going to go and the Chiefs are up and they're rolling, then you have to start Burrow. If you think it just gets so far out of hand, and it could, I have Joe Burrow as my QB 14 this week. I hated he didn't get it done at home with basically the same lineup he's going to have this week as far as options available to him against the effing Patriots.
Right.
Now you got Chris Jones in there, who's a game wrecker. You've got no T. Higgins. It puts my brain into a pretzel to say I'm considering sitting Joe Burrow. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But can you? And I think the answer is I think you can sit him this week. Unless you believe that it's a shootout and they've got to go and get back. The upside is this. Jamar Chase should have more fitness. He's getting more game reps. He's obviously going to get all the targets. He can make 2 plays and that should make Burrow's week, right? But I think the Chiefs roll. The Bengals looked awful.
Yeah.
I mean, they looked really bad.
It's tough. We kind of have him about the same spot. I have him as my QB 13 right now, so just outside of starter. Like Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels are guys that, leapfrogged him this week for me. I did have 2 ahead of him as well. And I, got to have Dak ahead of him and CJ Stroud. So I just couldn't find anywhere to get him. Now that we're kind of even talking about it as well, too, I have Stafford as 14, like I talked about, and Purdy at 15. I might actually move Joe Burrow back behind those guys. Yep. When kind of push comes to shove, like you said, game time kind of decision. I'm kind of contemplating doing it now. But for now, let's hope, Burrowhead and all this kind of stuff, he is going there. Let's see if he can right the ship over there and have a little get right game, and he and Chase can find the connection. So at least that's what I'm hoping for, man. I'm so invested in Chase and Burrow that I just hope that's what goes on. But let's talk about the running game here with Zach Moss. Are you finding a way to get him or Chase Brown in your lineup?
If I can sit them both, I'm sitting them both. Chris Jones is a game wrecker, man. He's that defense has looked good. They're at home again, the Chiefs, and and you have to remember it's more of a timeshare than you want. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there's just one guy, so there's enough volume that he could volume, or someone could who's going to fall in the end zone. I don't know. Right. I don't know if it's going to be Moss. I don't know if it's going to be Brown. So I don't want either one of them in the lineup. If I can afford to, I'm sitting them both.
Right. To me, actually, I thought I was a little more in favor of Moss. With that timeshare, Chase Brown only played 33% of the snaps, where you saw Zach Moss play 65% of the snaps.
Yep.
And then did get the touchdown there. Only 9 carries, though. Again, they just really couldn't do much against the Patriots that game. So again, We'll end up seeing kind of what happens there. But yeah, so we kind of talked about Worthy already, but since we're in the game here, do you have Worthy as a starter or sit?
I mean, you said it. You made a great point earlier. You're shooting for ceiling, right? We all offseason we said Anthony Richardson could be the overall QB1 because of the rushing upside, right? Whether we're right or wrong doesn't matter. You have to take chances on guys like that can break the game. Xavier Worthy can break the game. He showed it to us in week 1. Is it sustainable? We have no idea. Probably not. But if he goes 2 for 69 and a touchdown, that's a great week again. So yeah, I think you got to put him in there and hope that he's going to get a long one from Mahomes.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. I have him as a easy flex play for me. Definitely not a starter in like a 2 wide receiver league. Maybe as that, flex in a 2 wide receiver league. But maybe 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. I'd probably consider him in that type of situation, just depending on how you drafted. If you went wide receiver heavy.
Yep.
But yeah, if in a 3 wide receiver plus a flex league, he's easily a flex or even borderline wide receiver 3 for me there. Again, just being attached to Mahomes, that's just giving you potential upside. And he's just a game breaker. And then, so last guy I want to talk about here in this game, I have Samaje Perine, maybe with a potentially closer game here, or them being behind, do they, or not being behind, but
I was going to say not being behind.
Yeah, no. I can't, when I saw Perine, my mind just automatically thinks Bengals. So a little revenge game going on here for Perine. Do you think Andy Reid dials something up for Perine to get him in the end zone?
No, I don't. I mean, I think you saw it last week. They dialed something up for Worthy and took a touchdown opportunity, a rushing opportunity away from Pacheco, who's clearly their guy. So I think if it goes away from Pacheco, it probably goes to Worthy. I also think you're going to see a lot more involvement from Travis Kelce this week. I think this is a nice Kelce week, starting slow last week. So no, I'm not in on Perine at all.
All right. So other than that, man, I have the must starts is Jamar Chase, Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce. I have all those guys. You're getting them in your lineups. The sits I have is Yoshiva, Burton, Irwin, Gesicki, Juju, and Watson. Any disagreements there? Or are you ready to move on to this last game?
No, I would just say Gesicki is an interesting DFS play this week. So that's something just to keep in mind if you're looking at some DFS lineups because he's so cheap. But as a managed league, no, Gesicki's not in my lineups.
There we go. All right, man. Let's bring it home. Bring it home. Not too bad on the time, man. We've been flying through this, plus a little mini Q&A section in there, or a session in there too. So well done, man. We're after our week 1. We're fine-tuned machine here. So let's get into it, man. Monday Night Football. We have Falcons at Eagles. Look at the Eagles playing. What they played on Friday, and then now they don't play again until Monday. They got like basically a mini bye week going on here.
Yep.
So Falcons at Eagles. You have the Eagles favored by 6.5, 47.5 point over under. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins, man. Didn't look great last week. What do you do with Cousins here against the Eagles, who obviously let some points go to Jordan Love last week before he went out?
I'm sitting him. It didn't look good. I think the Packers are a much better team. I think Love's a better quarterback right now. They were at home and he couldn't get it done. They're going to Philadelphia. The cornerback play looked much better that was the biggest weakness, and Philly addressed that. They've got a great pass rush. They've got a great front 4. So, I mean, to me, I don't want Cousins in my lineup this week. And if I don't want Cousins in my lineup this week, then as much as I think Darnell Mooney could be interesting, he's more of a DFS dart throw for me than it is really a managed league start. Obviously, Bijan, the obvious ones, Bijan, London, Pitts, those guys are in there. But I don't like it. I don't like the game script. I think it's probably a 7-point game. I think the Eagles win by a touchdown.
Yeah, hey, line's at 6.5. So that's not going, that's not too hot of a take. That's just, kind of about what everyone's thinking. So that's good stuff there. Goddard at the tight end position, just given the landscape, have you seen enough from him?
I was really down on Goddard coming into the season, and he had a much better week 1 than I was expecting. His involvement was a lot higher than I thought it would be, and his targets were there with A.J. Brown, with Devonta Smith, with Saquon running riot. Goddard still was okay. I think Goddard becomes a must start if A.J. Brown misses this week.
That's what we're getting to, yeah.
And if he doesn't, I think you can still, because the tight end is so thin, I think you can still start him because of the involvement and just hope that maybe Saquon gets 2 touchdowns and the extra one goes to Goddard. So
there you go. Yeah, so and I'm kind of right there with you. I have him as my just tight end 11 just because I couldn't get anybody else ahead of him at that point. So just again, just kind of a product of the position. But yeah, the big news here in this one is that AJ Brown late, and you hate to see these hamstrings pop up on a Friday. He was practicing full Wednesday, Thursday, and then popped up today with a hamstring. That's usually not a good sign. But we'll see what happens. His physique, he's a freak of nature. As far as that goes. So maybe he's able to, maybe they're just being real cautious, and hopefully he can go. But yeah, if he doesn't go, man, Devonta Smith to the moon. And then Goddard, I think is a nice little play there as well. Do you think if AJ Brown misses, is Dotson anyone to kind of, I have him as a must sit, but if he misses, do you think?
I'll tell you the question though. The real question on that is I want to see what his involvement is if AJ Brown misses, because he was, if my memory's right, I don't think he even had a target in week 1. I don't remember. I have to go.
One target. Yeah, one target, no catches, but did play 42% of the snaps. So he was a candidate, honorable mention for the all cardio team.
Yeah. And look, and he came into a new team, like 10 days? When was the trade?
Yeah.
Like 10 or 12. So, he's learning a playbook. I get it. I didn't expect him to come out and be a game breaker, obviously, with those 2 wide receivers there. But I'm going to sit him. But I'm more interested to see, if a hamstring lingers into a 2-week or a 3-week thing for AJ Brown, what is Dotson's involvement? How many targets he gets? And does he become someone that potentially, if Brown misses next week, we're talking about Dotson a little bit more heavier next week?
For sure. And like you said, man, we're starting Bijan, we're starting London, Pitts, Hurts, and Devonta Smith. I have the sits as Algier, McLeod, and Dotson. Any disagreements there, or are we ready to get to these questions?
Questions answered for the folks.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So we'll get into this Q&A session here. So if you have questions, make sure you drop them in here now. We will, let me scroll back up here and find out kind of where we left off. If you feel like we missed your question, feel free to drop it again. We don't mind. But you don't have to spam your question. We will get to it. So do you have one there? I'm still kind of scrolling.
Yeah, I got one.
Go right ahead.
I know where we left off. So Robert Thomas, big fan of the show. Obviously, his name pops up all the time. Appreciate you being here, brother. What were the Puka and Kyren takes this time last year? I'll start really quickly. The Puka take was quite simply, he destroyed it. So in week 2, you were saying, can he do it again? Obviously, he was the number 1 waiver wire pickup, and I think if you were fortunate enough to grab him, in a dynasty league off your taxi squad, man, you were like, "Whoo!" in there.
Yeah, and Cup was out at that time as well too, still dealing with that hamstring. So yeah, we were all over Puka, man. Yep. I traded him actually for Justin Jefferson, but we'll talk about that more next Wednesday.
Yeah, I think you saw Puka. At one point I was offering, thirds and seconds, and then people were like, "No, I want a first." And I was like, "That's ridiculous." And then 3 weeks later, it was like, "Oh, that's actually probably a fair price," right? So, I think it's I think you just take this. The reason I started with this question, 1, it's where we left off. 2, I think you just change the name here to Cup, and it's the same conversation this year because Puka's out. It's all good. It's going to be all Cup and Kyren this week, especially against the Cardinals. We talked about some of the other pieces that could be there, but from the strongest plays, those are the 2 strongest plays coming into the week.
Right. And you kind of heard my Puka take there. He was the hot waiver wire ad. Kyren was a little different. Remember week 1, I think Cam Akers had like 20 carries or something crazy. And then all of a sudden was just traded to Minnesota out of nowhere for this guy, Kyren Williams. So I was a little more hesitant on Kyren. When it first happened, I jumped all over Puka because that just flashed for me. Like that passed the eye test. I wasn't quite sure with Kyren. Plus, I think he was going up against the Niners week 2. So I was kind of like, But then he scored like 2 touchdowns. It was crazy against us in that game. So I think you had to pay attention to him after that. So those were our takes there. Go ahead.
Just Captain Spock makes a really good point, right? Because we watched that Sunday night football game against the Lions last week. The Rams are missing some guys, right? So
I mentioned that.
As much as we want this to be a shootout, we want Stafford to have. He may not have as much time. Now the good thing is we saw it last week because they did miss those guys earlier in the game.
Right.
It was a lot of three-step drops and really quick releases, getting the ball into Cooper. So his ADOT was lower, but that's. Cooper Kupp's a shifty, quick guy. Like you can get the ball to him real quick, continue to move the chains. So it is something to keep in mind. Obviously, maybe just kind of back of your mind thing. But let's Let's get to Mario here. Mario Moreno, Neighbors or Godwin in the flex. Who do you go with this week, Rasta?
To me, it's Godwin. I really like what I saw with Godwin. I think he spent like 55 or something % of his snaps in the slot, which is what we wanted to see. I have him ranked as my wide receiver 16 this week versus who was it? Neighbors that I think I have down here in the 20s, actually 33. Just not feeling anything with the Giants this week. I want to see it a little opposite from what I'm feeling, with Marvin Harrison Jr. Even though the talent's there, I just am not a believer in Daniel Jones. Once they fire up Drew Lock, then Neighbors to the moon.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's Godwin for me. Look, they're playing the Lions. They're on the road. It's a great game environment. At the end of it all, it's a rematch of last year's divisional round. So I like Godwin this week again. Obviously, caught a touchdown last week. So to me, it's a stronger play, and it's game environment. It's quarterback.
There you go. Well done. I got one here from Dr. Clutch saying, is Jacoby Myers worth a roster spot?
100%. I think he's worth a roster spot. The question is what do you believe with AOC and Minshew? It's Minshew for now, but if they struggle again, what does that look like? We said to sit Zamir White. We don't love the environment this week, but Jacoby Myers, I mean, again, any player can get hurt on any play. If Devontae Adams is no longer available, Jacoby Myers is the number one guy that people are maybe not picking up. He's probably not on the waiver wire, but potentially trading for. So, yes, I think he's worth a roster spot.
There you go. Yeah, for me, Dr. Clutch, man, I'm a little opposite here than my counterpart over here, my co-host. I'm not feeling anything Raiders. I mean, I barely have Adams as a start or didn't even draft any of them this year, and I was touting go get him, last year. Given the situation there, just this year was not feeling it. So I'm just kind of out on him right now. Myers was only good when I think Jimmy G was there. And other than that, I mean, he's kind of been a no-show, and he definitely tailed off at the end of last year. So for me, no, especially with some of the hot waiver wire ads, Mason, guys like that you could have maybe got, J.K. Dobbins, some of these guys, like I would have, rotated him out real fast. He would have been one of the first people. I mean, he would have been there in my situation, but if you do have him, I think he's an easy drop. If you find something hot on the waiver wires. So
poor Dr. Clutch, man, wanted an answer, and I said yes, and you said no, and the guy's going there. Oh man.
Yeah. So we didn't help you out really too much at all. Maybe the chat can break the tie with us here, but at least you're just, at least your question is he worth the roster spot, and am I starting him? So that means you're
that
good.
Was the answer was a roster spot. I said yes. I didn't say start him. I said I think you could put him on your roster, but yeah,
right.
We'll get there. So.
For sure. He also asked, I don't know if you're bringing one up, but he also asked, who would you start, Justin Fields or Caleb Williams? He said, can you tell, is he a Bears fan? So hopefully, Dr. Clutch, you can ask our boy Kendall, who was on earlier in part 1. He's our resident Bears fan here in the house. But who do you got, Fields or Caleb this week?
I would start Fields. It's just, look, the Bears are playing the Texans. I think the Texans have a really good defense. The Texans are at home. It's Sunday Night Football. I hated what I saw from Caleb last week. Hated it. Justin Fields runs. I don't rate the Broncos that much. It's not going to be an exciting game. We already talked about it. It's probably not a high score. I think I said 17-14 in that game earlier. But if Justin Fields runs and he runs for the touchdown, you know what I mean? Like that's probably more than I would start Fields. It's not hopefully you have another option, but if you're asking the question, this is probably what you got.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would start Fields.
There you go. And we're sorry, Dr. Clutch, man, we're not helping you at all here tonight. I don't know if you're looking at my rankings or what, but I literally have these guys back to back as my QB 17 and 18. I do have Caleb Williams ahead of Fields just because I think there's a potential for shootout or maybe even just garbage time in this game if that happens. I mean, Houston is, a tough defense. I talked about it earlier when we broke down the game that, I think Fields could have a big, game on the ground. With, of course, Pat Surtain, should pretty much eliminate Pickens in this one. I don't think we really talked. Actually, I don't know if we mentioned Pickens' name in the other one, except for I had him as a start when we were breaking down that game. But I just think, again, I'm going to kind of wash that off. Rookie first game, he got the win. Let's see if they can regroup, adjust some things. And I'm just, there could be a potential shootout or at least keep it close here I don't like the fact that, Rome's going to be a little banged up, and of course Allen's a little banged up, which is why I have them both kind of, down here. But they're back to back. Maybe I switch them, but yeah, for right now, I still have Caleb's just ahead of Fields. I just can't get behind Fields yet.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I like that. I agree with you. I just don't know that I see the shootout. I see the Texans putting up points.
Well, I just meant like they're going to have to like play from behind and like have to catch up. Like they're not just going to be, turning and handing that ball off to DeAndre Swift, which is a whole different story as well there too. We didn't get to talk about this game. It was in the part one. But yeah, so it's again, that was just kind of the little that was the only thing that made me put him ahead when I was playing King of the Hill with my rankings.
Yeah, it's that Texans deep. All right, let's move on.
It is tough. All right. So yeah, go ahead. Who else you got?
Rashad White, Sharps, RB2, 10-team PPR. For me, it's Rashad White. I get the appeal for Charbonnet, obviously the hot waiver wire, or if you had him on your bench, obviously a must start now with the doubtful to KW3. But I like that game environment against Detroit, and Rashad White obviously guaranteed volume on probably a better offense.
Yeah, I think I have Rashad White higher here. Kind of for those reasons. Just that PPR upside. I think he had 7 catches last week for 75 yards or something like that. So I mean, he's just going to get it done in a PPR league. I think you have to get him in there. Baker's kind of the hot thing right now. We're expecting a good game there this week as well too. So yeah, I have White over Sharp. So at least we helped out K Balla 32 here, man. So hopefully guys are hitting that like and subscribe button for us as we go here, man. Help us get to that 1.3 thousand. So I have another one here from Peanut Breath OG. He says, any changes or trades I should make? It's a 12-man, 1 flex. It's Jaden Daniels, Saquon, and Bijan. Whew, that's nasty. With London and Devonta Smith. Damn, a light in a 12-man. This is crazy. With Worthy and Ingram, his bench is Love, right? Watson, Likely, Higgins, Coleman, and McCaffrey. This is a nice freaking team. The only thing I don't quite like is the Bijan London kind of double stack there. But I mean, other than that, man, this was a well-drafted team. What are you thinking as far as changes? I mean, my big thing is just trying to split up Bijan and London, and really it's London, but you can't really sell them right now. Just given, you're going to get pennies on the dollar, so to speak. You need to wait for him to have a couple big games before you can maximize it. But yeah, I've talked enough. Go ahead.
No, I agree with everything you just said. I feel the same way on that Bijan London take. I would probably drop Jalen Wright and go see if there's someone better on the wire. It's Achane to the moon. I mean, look, the game script last night with the 2 high safeties, you could tell even when Tua was healthy, was get the ball to Achane because that was the only way they were finding success moving the ball. If it's Skylar Thompson, is that his name? Is that the backup?
Yeah, something like
or
that.
Or if it's Ryan Tannehill, or if it's Tom Brady, you know what I mean? Like whoever the quarterback for Miami is going to be. I still think it's going to be Achane, and if Mostert's healthy, I think it's going to be Achane and Mostert. And look, Tyreek can do, there's so many things you can do creatively to get and scheme Tyreek and Waddle manufactured touches. So I would probably get rid of Jalen Wright. I think Achane and Mostert are the only 2 in Miami that I'm interested in the running back room.
For sure. Like him and Luke McCaffrey, although I was really, encouraged by the usage with McCaffrey actually last game compared to like barely him doing anything in the preseason at all, and not sounding like he was doing good in camp. But yeah, if anything comes up on the waiver wire, Wright is that first drop. And then the only other thing I could think of, like since you mentioned Achane, and maybe if you do want to split this Bijan London, would you consider trading Bijan for Achane and another piece?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just had to throw it out there.
I mean, look, I love Achane. I think he's fantastic. He's obviously going to be able to finish inside I don't know if it's overall RB1, but he's going to finish as an RB1. If Bijan had scored last week, he had 100 all-purpose yards. He just didn't score a touchdown.
Right.
I mean, he did what we wanted him. He did what we wanted him to do last season in the first week, and that's what I was looking for. So I just really quickly, as I look at this, and then we can move on. I assume Watson is Deshaun Watson. So if you have Love, you have Watson, you have Daniels. I
was reading that as Christian Watson. Actually,
that's what I assumed as well.
Okay.
But if it is Deshaun Watson, you don't need 3 quarterbacks. Even with Jordan Love being injured, you don't need 3 quarterbacks in a single quarterback league unless this is super flex. Then you have to hold him. If it's Christian Watson, then you're fantastic. If it's Deshaun Watson, change that up.
For sure. I agree with that 100%. Wicked in here saying, do you think McConkey could be a good flex play and redraft down the road?
I scored a touchdown last week. I was just looking at their game, actually. I think it's a good week to flex him this week because the Panthers are dog shit. I'm curious to see. My questions about the Chargers is Dobbins really the guy, or is Gus going to have an uptick in work this week because we know they want to run the ball? But I do think McConkey's an interesting flex play this week against the Panthers. If they're playing Dallas, then I'd probably sitting him. If they're playing the Niners, somebody like that kind of a defense, the Jets. But I think he's probably a good flex this week against that disgusting, putrid Carolina team. And the big question in 3 weeks will be, can the Georgia Bulldogs beat the Carolina Panthers? And there we go. So,
and then we're off to the races for sure.
Off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, you like it. It's encouraging. 67% of the snaps, led the team with 7 targets, 5 catches, so good efficiency there. 39 yards and the game-winning touchdown. So he's definitely a piece you're going to hold on to. And I absolutely see he could be flexible, down the line. He is still attached to Herbert. We just want to see how this offense ends up playing out. So, so there we go. We have another one here from 101 Dozer, another new name. Hopefully hit that subscribe button for us, man. It says Aaron Jones or Jerome Ford.
Jerome Ford.
Same with me. That's super easy. Don't even have to explain it. Ray said pick 2, but I think he ended up super chatting it later, so we already talked about that one. So we'll move on. Here we go. McLovin Muhammad. He says he needs a wide receiver. Who should I trade Jordan Mason for? Like, what level wide receiver are you looking to trade Jordan Mason for? I'll throw one out there for you. I'll start with Marvin Harrison Jr. Would you trade Mason for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I wouldn't trade Jordan Mason. No, I mean, I wouldn't. Like,
I like it. I like the answer. I love it.
Like, I get it. You want a wide receiver, but like, you have the starting running back for the San Francisco 49ers for maybe a month. That could be 3 to 4 RB1 finishes. He's already got one. We know what they can do. I'll answer the question. If I have to trade him, I don't think you're getting a deal done for Marv. You think you can get a deal done for Marv for Jordan Mason?
I mean, you never know, man. I mean, I'm just trying to find like a range of wide receiver. Like, that's someone that I would at least try for, because I was, Marvin Harrison was actually one of my trade targets on the Wednesday show when I was talking about it. I think I mentioned this exact thing. Like, I love being able to just pick up somebody off the waiver wire, especially knowing like McCaffrey's going to eventually come back. Like, give me somebody that I can use that's a high-end talent. That was a high drafted pick, 2nd round pick, sometimes a 1st round pick in 12-team leagues. Let me grab somebody like that has that potential over a guy that I picked up off the waiver wire. That's going to give me full season potential play versus maybe just this month. So that's my personal thought process on that. Like, that's who I would trade for. That I think you have like honestly a realistic chance, especially if if that Marvin Harrison Jr. team is hurting at running back right now. I think that it may not be just straight up but that could be the main part of the package.
It could be. Yeah, I just think that people, the mentality, the psychology behind a Marvin Harrison drafter is that you drafted him and you don't want to get ring of him, and you're probably, like we said earlier, saying, "Oh, it was a bad week. It's gonna come. It's gonna be fine." So, I'm actually, I'll say this: I might trade Jordan Mason for Brandon Ayuk or Debo.
Okay, stay with the same team.
Yeah, you're still getting a piece, and it's obviously a high-powered offense. You still have some ceiling involved, like we talk about all the time with the Niners. When it's one of the receivers' week, it's their week. So I might take a shot on that. I would target. You won't get it done straight up, but I'd target Devonta Smith.
Yeah, Smith, Chase, those kind of guys.
I'd go get Devonta Smith, and if I need to throw in a small piece or
Chris Godwin, maybe. Like, is he worth it enough for you, or is that not high enough?
I'd rather have Mason than Godwin.
Okay.
Guaranteed touches.
Jameson Williams?
I'd rather have Mason.
Okay. Olave?
I'd rather have Mason with Derek Carr and Olave right now.
It was getting worse. I just wanted to see.
I was gonna say you're going the wrong direction, brother.
Oh, that was the point. I wanted to find where the line was on that side.
That was my line. That was my line. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. You got another one? Go ahead.
Yeah, we got to talk about it. We got to do it. I lost Tua. My backup is Sam Darnold. Sorry, this is coming in from Cloudy Plays. I lost Tua. My backup is Sam Darnold. Should I trade for quarterback? One of my league mates drafted two star quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Oh, that was high T right there. What's a good value for one of them? I think this is a great question because a lot of people lost Tua, and especially in single quarterback leagues. If Sam Darnold is your starter, I think you have to make a trade.
Yeah.
I think there's no way that Sam Darnold is giving you a high enough ceiling, regardless of what the rest of your team looks like, to get you to the playoffs. I just don't. I mean, unless you've got Bijan and Gibbs, but you can't draft so that you have all those guys. Like, it's not possible to draft that way. So, I think if you're going to go ahead and try to get a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, if somebody's going to give that to you, you're going to have to give up a major piece. So that's probably not who I would target. I would probably go and target Joe Burrow, somebody who may be able to buy a little lower on right now, who we think is going to bounce back. I might try and target Jordan Love, knowing that he's going to miss a couple weeks, and that way you've got a guaranteed upgrade in your quarterback room when he does come back.
Yeah, roll with Donner for a little while and kind of buy low on Love. I like that.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting name. And those are probably two guys I think you could get. Just looking through, like,
yeah, the other ones are tough. Like, maybe you take a chance on Caleb Williams, maybe buy low on him. He probably was somebody's QB2. I mean, if you're going to go after Allen or Mahomes, like, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny to get him, which might just kind of destroy your team. So you might just be better off trying to, package up some, other guys, maybe your wide receiver 3, and a backup running back, maybe to get someone, like Love.
One more name, Jaden Daniels. He had a really great rushing week last week. The passing volume wasn't superb, and obviously the game was awful, but he was probably also, like Caleb, drafted as somebody's high upside, backup. This guy could be a league winner second half of the year. And if he doesn't have a great week again this week, then that could be an interesting buy. I won't say buy low, but buy lower.
Right.
So yeah, those are some names I think that you could go and try and target.
Good stuff. We appreciate it, Cloudy. Hopefully hit that subscribe button for us. Nice seeing new names in here. And he has another question actually here. He says, is DeAndre Hopkins a sleeper?
I think it's hard to call someone who's a starter on their own team a sleeper.
Joe's in here being a smartass. He's probably sleeping now. Yeah.
Yeah. He might be. Will Levis also sleeping during the game, throwing the ball with his eyes closed, and then the Titans looked really bad last week. I mean, the Bears didn't win that game. The Titans lost it. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I agree. I don't think he's a sleeper either, man. I think he's kind of about where people drafted him. Not a bad, kind of bench stash to see what happens later, but I don't think your fantasy championship is going to come down to DeAndre Hopkins being a thing or not. No. Just not an offense I'm willing to target. Like I said, I kind of have a simple rule when it comes to fantasy: just target players on good teams, like good offenses. Like that's it. Sometimes it's just super simple. Like you don't have to overthink it. So yeah, Abraham's in here saying, would you trade Kyron in London for Pacheco and Stevenson? It's full PPR. He only has K9, Bigsby, and Javonte as his other RBs.
No. I'd rather have the upside of Kyron in London. I mean, I love Pacheco, but I don't know what I believe about Stevenson still. And again, I project them to be a bottom 10 offense. So I just don't know how many touchdowns and how much, even though there's volume there. I understand the move of like trying to get it is 2 for 2 of player wise, but a 2 for 1, meaning double up that running back for a running back and a receiver. But the big question for me is, are you really upgrading your running back room enough because of what you're downgrading at wide receiver? Because if you're saying now that Pacheco and Stevenson are in your team, K9, are we talking about KW3? Are you talking about Kenneth Walker III?
I assume that's who I was assuming it was. Yeah.
K9.
Yeah.
So in that situation, Stevenson's your flex if you have Kenneth Walker III. I know he's not playing this week, but when he's healthy, you're playing KW3 and Pacheco. And you're flexing. I don't like to have running backs in my flex spots. I'd rather have receivers, especially in full PPR. So I would hold and get Kyron in London. If the running backs are going to start getting hurt, there's going to be guys you're going to pick up off the wire, and I would just wait and do it that way. Or if it gets really thin later, make it different. Replace Stevenson with something else.
Right. Now, and my only thing too is who do you have left at wide receiver if you're getting rid of London, who probably was your wide receiver 1 or 2 at worst, depending on how your draft went. And yeah, K9 he's hurt right now, but he'll be back. And these other guys, Javonte, I'm not a big fan. Bigsby, they if he gets in the end zone, I think you can get by. I don't think you have to trade all that off, for that package specifically. So I'm a no on that one myself, but it's fairly close, and I understand what you're doing, but it's only week 2. See what kind of shakes out with with Javonte. And again, Bigsby could have a role to where he's kind of flexible, or at least RB2 good enough to get by during a bye week. My ATN shares don't want to hear or say that, but the analyst in me has to say it.
Agreed.
There we go. Joe just says, I want to see Knicks take off and become a QB1. Let's see. Pouty said Will Levis will throw to DeAndre Hopkins. He's not limited anymore.
No, he's permanently limited.
Yeah. Worthy is Worthy. I don't even know how to say this. Worthy of starting. Worthy is the question. Is Worthy worth starting? Maybe.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, you can.
Okay. All right.
Let's where we going here?
Oh, good.
PPR.
Way to save me.
Yeah, Ladd, Sharps, and Dobbins. This week I would take Ladd and I would take Sharps. I don't love playing 2 players on the same team. And again, I want to see the question I have this week is Dobbins really the guy? And what we saw last week going to be a trend, or is Gus going to start being more involved? And in PPR as well, I think I would take Ladd and Sharp. Do you agree on that?
Yeah. I agree with Sharps, but I'd take my chance with J.K. Dobbins. Going up against this Carolina defense, it's a sieve. You said, I don't want to play both guys from the same team. And I just think it could get ran away with, and J.K. can be the one to run away with it. So, I'll go Sharps and Dobbins in this one.
Okay. Trade Josh Jacobs and Brooks for CMC and Worthy. I have Mason. When he says Brooks, it's Brooks in Carolina, who's on the pup.
Jonathan Brooks?
Unless there's another Brooks that I don't know about. I have to assume it's Jonathan Brooks. So, yes, this is a yes.
I'd probably take that chance. Again, CMC and Worthy. You have Mason. So you can hold off, and if CMC doesn't come back, you're going to have the Niners starting running back, who before CMC, it didn't matter who was in the Niners backfield. We were just like, we need that guy. When CMC got back there, that guy was the RB1 overall. We always want these Niners running backs. So I'm a yes on that one too.
Yep, I think we'll probably wrap with this and pick PPR pick 2. B Tom, assume that's BTJ, Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, Brandon Cooks, Demarcus Robinson, Isaiah Likely. He has Andrews.
Ooh, that's tough. I have an answer. You got it, or you still want to take a second?
One of them's pretty easy for me. I'm thinking of who I want in that second spot. Brian Thomas.
So we both agree Brian Thomas, right?
Brian Thomas is in there. He's the easiest one.
I go Cooks after that.
I actually would too, based just off of this week and what we know. Ferguson's missing, and the backfield is a disaster there. So, and I think the Cowboys win this game. So, yeah, I would take BTJ and Cooks this week. Yep,
I agree. Appreciate that, Tingley. We got Jeezy in the house. What's up, Jeezy? Says I have concept of a new show. So a little shout out there. Jeezy and I finally connected. We're putting another show together that you'll see here on Get Right Fantasy Network. So he'll be joining the team here soon. So we appreciate you. And of course, shout out to the ACG of Veterans Charity League. It's a charity league that he does every year, which we'll be bringing to the Get Right Fantasy Network platform. Maybe I spilled the beans a little bit on that a little early. But we're excited, man, on what we have planned coming up for that. So again, just big shout out to Jeezy and what he does for his charity for the K9 Warriors, supporting all the veterans out there dealing with PTSD. So big shout out to you, my guy Jeezy, and we're looking forward to it, man. So let's see. He says,
I was in edit.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I saved that one.
Oh man, hatless and bearded Rasta is tripping me out. He's been missing in a MIA way too much this summer, man. Yeah, so when I'm feeling good and I have the haircut and my receding hairline isn't quite shown as much, I pull the hat off. Growing out the beard here, not as good as my boy Kendall and the counterpart over here next to me with their beards. But I'm trying to step my beard game up here a little bit. So there we go. Appreciate the comment, Jeezy, man. What's up? Joe asked a good question, man. It's just the straight up question that, is CMC just coming back? Like, do you think he's coming back?
At some point. I don't know when.
I think he will.
I think
they're not going to force him.
No, I think if they win again this week, he doesn't come back next week, though. Unless he's ready.
Yeah, I think the more they win, the longer they feel comfortable keeping him out.
Agreed.
If they get like in a 2 or 3 game winning streak, then it might be like, all right, Christian, let's see what's going on.
I mean, Niners are trying to win the Super Bowl. They need Christian McCaffrey in November and December and January. Yep. They don't need him in September.
And if not, give Mason the work now, get him comfortable and feeling good and confident. Like that's what you want to do. If that's going to be the case. So let's see. Did we get to this one? He says, if you drafted Tua, you should have drafted a backup in the next round. Oh, maybe he was answering somebody else's question.
Someone else's question.
My bad. Fields or Mayfield from Anonymous Gaming?
Mayfield.
Yeah, Mayfield too. I think I have him as like QB 6 or 7 this week.
I love that. It's probably going to be. I think should be one of the most fun games to watch this week. Just from a football game, and then obviously what we expect and hope will happen for fantasy.
Yeah, I have Goff at 8 and Baker at 9. So I'm loving that Mayfield there. Mayfield won me a championship last year, man. When Herbert went down and picked up Shake and Bake for the end of the year, man, rode him all the way to the championship. So him and Flacco. Yeah. All right. So, Cloudy said he subscribed. Hey, we appreciate it, man. That's what's up. So there it is. And the last one here. This is a good question. Yeah. Make sure you guys are supporting our boy over here too. Cloudy, you subscribe to the Get Right. Hopefully you subscribed here to the Extra Point, as well as the Fantasy Football Tavern and the Boardroom, our affiliate channels here. The links are all down in the description, so make sure you check those out. Robert has a cool little question here for us that we can end on. He says, I'm be shocked the most if blank happens in week 2. That's a tough one. I like that.
I have an easy.
Robert, I almost want to throw you a super chat for asking this question. This is good stuff, man.
I'll give you the easiest answer in the world, then I'll give you a real one.
Go ahead.
I will be shocked if the Panthers beat the Chargers.
Okay. I'll be shocked the most if the Panthers beat the Chargers. Okay.
I just cannot get behind the Panthers doing anything positive. So I will be shocked. But again, I think most people had Cincinnati in their survivor pools last week, and they have been eliminated. They're done. So we'll see. But yeah, I'd be shocked if the Panthers beat the Chargers.
All right. Here's one that I didn't really get to talk about that I'll throw out there because we didn't get this game. Because of course our boy over in the first show, the Giants and Washington game, I'll be shocked if Brian Robinson Jr. doesn't have a bomb game this week, man. Like I have him as one of my must starts this week. I have him all the way up as my RB13. And I probably could get him as my RB12, who I actually have as J.K. Dobbins. I'm loving both of these guys as matchups this week. I'd be shocked actually if J.K. and Brian Robinson both don't have fantastic weeks this week.
I have one that I was worried about. Not worried. I was upset by is a better word last week that I will be worried about this week if it happens again. I will be shocked if the Lions do not get the ball more to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That's a good one.
Because that was very disturbing last week. And it wasn't that they didn't have opportunities. They just didn't get him the ball. They didn't target him enough. It wasn't about catches and touchdowns. It wasn't even making the effort. So I need to see in this game environment with the Buccaneers and what we expect to be a high-scoring game, I need to see targets going to Amon-Ra, and obviously we expect good things to happen if and when they do.
For sure. Good stuff there, man. Good stuff. All right. So, again, that live Q&A session was brought to you from our boys over at TrophySmack.com. So if you guys want to take your fantasy football league to the next level, make sure you go check out TrophySmack.com. The link is down in the description. You guys can add a ring like this, which is fully customizable, like this one here and the one I have right next to me. And again, I don't know why I'm not wearing it. But the trophy, they have belts, of course, the Kirk Cousins chains. So make sure you guys check out TrophySmack.com. Use that promo code GetRight when you check out. It'll help support the channel. And again, make sure you guys are throwing a subscribe over to our boys, The Extra Point. with Phil here, and of course our guy earlier, Mr. Kendall from the Fantasy Football Tavern, as well as our boy Tycoon from the Fantasy Boardroom. So before we get out of here, Phil, as I always like to do, man, I'm going to give you the full screen here. Tell the folks where they can find you, what you got going on your own channel and your podcast as well too, from some additional content. So there you go. Floor is yours.
Appreciate it. Always great to be a part of Get Right, obviously being on the main show. I am at The Extra Point. You can find me on YouTube every Thursday night live at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Obviously leading right up to Thursday night. On the Thursday night live show, we're going to be going through some DFS, some betting props, higher lowers that we like, give you all the best opportunity to win some money. And then the podcast is over on Patreon and Spotify, and that's going to be more takes on, things that are happening around the league in season. Obviously, trades, things that I think are important and relevant to be up on in the off season. Massive amounts of dynasty content, rankings, rookies, everything that's going to get you prepared to dominate your rookie drafts. And then obviously rolling into the summer, we're going to be focusing a ton on best ball. So head over to YouTube, give me a like and subscribe at The Extra Point. And then of course, listen along on Spotify and Patreon.
There it is, man. Appreciate it. And unless there's anything else you have, man, I hate to leave when we have all these people still here hanging out with us, man, but we appreciate all the support that you guys have thrown our way. Best of luck to you guys coming up here in week 2. Hopefully you got off to a good start, or if you're behind, hopefully you have some guys that make up for if you're playing against James Cook and Achan, who both went just absolutely absurd on Thursday, just like Saquon did last Thursday. Hopefully you guys get that all going. Make sure you guys, for any of these people that we're not quite sure on, we will be here Sunday morning. Classic Mike's active, inactive show. Also doing a little bit of DFS there as well, but more importantly, taking your last minute start sit decisions right before kickoff. If you have questions, make sure you come in there. He will have answers. From time to time, I'll pop in there. I'm sure Phil, Kendall will all probably make rounds there throughout the year. But pretty much that's Mike's show that I gave to him, and he loves doing that Sunday mornings. So other than that, man, we appreciate you guys. Good luck here this week. Again, from all of us over here at Get Right Fantasy, we wish you all the best. From our boy Dustin, for Frank, for Phil, Kendall, Tycoon, for Classic Mike. Happy Friday, man. Have a good evening, and we will see you guys next week for some more start sit. Let's get out of here. Peace out.
Peace.
Marking nothing, but I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided.